Ferris being sick 9 times.
That's because he wasn't sick.
Oh, he was skipping school. Well, maybe he was skipping school so he could listen to Student of the Gun Radio. What do you think? Hey, welcome back to Student of the Gun Radio, and yet another excursion into, I don't know, the minds of Paul and Jared Markle. So buckle up and hang on. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Thank you very much for joining us. And if this is your first time, congratulations and welcome aboard, and hold on, because you're not going to understand everything the first time. And that's okay. We don't expect for people to get it the first time out of the gate. That's all right. Just stick with us for a few weeks, and you'll get it, and you'll be down, and you'll be speaking the lingity. Now, before we get started, we want to acknowledge...
Did you just say giggity?
I said lingity.
Oh, okay. A quagmire haunted me for a second.
Oh, no. I wouldn't steal that from him there. But we are in the sunny southern Mississippi studios here, in the Student of the Gun studios. We're glad to be back with you. Now, we've got a lot of stuff to talk about this week. Before we get into it, we want to thank our good friends at Keltec Firearms. KeltecWeapons.com is where you want to find them on the internet. Crossbreed Holsters of Republic, Missouri, crossbreedholsters.com. Check them out. And Colt, the makers of the LE901 rifle. That's right. The 901 rifle starts out as a .308 Winchester rifle, but can be converted to 5.56 in about, 30 seconds, Jared? Maybe 30 seconds to convert it?
Well, you did it in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I think it was actually 26 seconds.
Oh, okay, 26 seconds. But give yourself, if you take your time, give yourself a minute. And you're like, well, what are you talking about? You can take a .308, like an AR-10, and make it a .223. How is that possible? Well, because the Colt LE901 is not your standard AR-10. It is not built like a standard AR-10. And because of the wizardry that they put together there, you can, no kidding, convert it. All you have to do is swap uppers. You swap buffers and buffer springs, and you swap upper receivers. And obviously you need different magazines for .308 or .223. But, you buy one rifle, you buy another upper, and you've essentially got two very well-built rifles from Colt. So check that out at Colt.com. Now, folks, we want to go ahead, and we're just going to springboard right directly into our Student of the Week. And this is kind of a treat for us and you guys as well, because the gentleman that posted the question for the XS Good Guy of the Week question, he did it via audio. And what the illustrious studio engineer and producer Jared is going to do is he's going to go ahead and play the audio, paraphrase the question, and then I'm going to go ahead and answer it. So, Jared, take it away.
Our Student of the Week, our XS Sites Good Guy of the Week this week is Joel Case. And Joel spent some time, he did an audio clip for us, and it's actually high quality audio, so I can use it on the show. If you guys have capability to do high quality audio, then you can send your clips to me at Jared, Jarrad, at studentofthegun.com. And I will flip through them or listen to them. That'll actually probably be easier. But Joel, I need you to send me your address, shirt size, and phone number to my email address that I stated earlier. And here's Joel's question.
Hi guys, my name is Joel. I'm from Crossville, Tennessee, and I'd like to give you a good guy's question of the week via audio. I have a Smith & Wesson 380 Bodyguard for concealed carry purposes, and I was wondering what your guys' opinion on taking the gun to a gunsmith and getting a shorter trigger assembly installed, not necessarily changing the weight of the trigger, just the length of the draw. Thanks for your help and love the show, guys.
I'm going to go ahead and paraphrase that to broaden the subject a little bit, because we can't just focus on one specific firearm. So, Dad, I want you to talk about kind of what would you do if you wanted to modify your trigger.
Yeah, well, first of all, if you modify the trigger yourself, you got to be, A, you should really know what you're doing, and B, you should be confident that what you're doing is in the interest of practicality, not gamesmanship. A lot of folks out there, guys, tinkerers, will tinker with their triggers to get them super light and super crisp and super this. And what they end up doing is they end up making the component more fragile. and they break, or they they don't work, or they don't reset when they're supposed to, and so forth. That's absolute last thing you want on a self-defense pistol is a fragile trigger. Okay. That being said, is it possible to make a trigger on a self-defense gun, whether it's a pocket gun or a full-size gun or whatever? Is it possible to make the trigger better? Yes. Now, the question I would have for you guys is this, is it worth, now, if the gun itself, how much investment do you have in that particular firearm? For instance, if you have a firearm and you say, I bought this double action to single action pistol, and the first trigger press is really super long and it's super heavy, and I can hardly manage it. The Beretta M9s, the military version Beretta M9s, are the classic terrible triggers. Folks, I've been there, I've done that, I've seen them. The Berettas out of the box, and even Beretta itself, I don't have anything against Beretta, but their the factory specs for their double action triggers on the M9, they allow themselves like a 3 to 3.5 pound variance. Like, well, when we ship it to you, it's either going to have somewhere between a 12 and 15 pound trigger press, just depending on which model you got. I guess depending, and maybe it's like the old Chevys, depends on what day of the week it was manufactured, whether or not the workers were either hungover or looking forward to vacation or something. And the reason I bring this up is you say, well, would it be better for you to have someone work on the trigger, take it to a gunsmith and have him fiddle fart with the trigger, or would it be better just to switch guns, just get a new gun that has a good trigger and call it good? And now, if you have a specific firearm, you're like, well, I really like the size, I like the feel, it functions well, I never have any problems with it, but doggone it, when I'm pressing the trigger, I can see the qualified gunsmiths out there in the United States who can improve your trigger. They can polish it, they can adjust the trigger springs and the weight of the springs, and make because, all right, I suppose I gotta give you a caveat here. There are some schools of thought that say no matter how heavy the trigger is, how crunchy it is, it feels like there's sand in it. It doesn't matter. If you alter it in any way and you have to use the gun for self-defense, you're automatically going to lose and go to prison because you altered the gun, and that makes you de facto guilty. Well, that's garbage. That's garbage. If you come down to an actual practical standpoint, and you talk about physics, say the more muscle tension that you have to put on the trigger in pressing it back to make the gun go boom, the more muscle tension you put on it, the greater amount of tension you're putting on the entire gun, and the greater amount of physical pressure or tension you're putting on the area where the front sight is. And what happens when the front sight moves around? Well, when the front sight moves around, that means the muzzle's moving around, which means you're not necessarily going to hit what you want to hit when you want to hit it. So heavier triggers are not safer. It's actually, quite frankly, when you get like really ridiculously crazy, when you get up into the 10, 12 plus pound triggers, 15 even for some of these guns, that doesn't equate to a safer trigger. What that means is the average person is going to have to put way more muscle tension on the gun than they need to, and they're going to be moving that gun all around at the point of ignition, and that's not a safe thing. Now, is there a standard? I believe Jeff Cooper's standard for pistol trigger was 4.5 pounds. I think his, forgive me if I'm paraphrasing him wrong, but it was like 4.5 crisp and clean is how he wanted all of his triggers. Can you get away with an 8-pound trigger? Sure you can. 7-pound trigger, sure. Now, every trigger is going to have a different feel. It's going to have, depending on whether it's a striker-fired gun, a double-action only gun, a single-action gun, they're going to feel different. And there's going to be a different length of travel and so forth. What you need to do as the gun owner is you need to first, number one, before you decide I'm going to have a gunsmith work on this trigger, look at the gun itself and say, is this gun worth me spending $150, $200 to tinker with the trigger? Yes or no? And, if it's a pocket 380, you might think, well, if I'm willing to put an extra $150 into this gun, could I just get another gun that has a good trigger and call it good? Do you have a real emotional attachment to that specific firearm? Because if you don't have an emotional attachment to it, I would just go ahead and buy a gun that has a good out-of-the-box trigger. Car pistols, KAHR, have fantastic, and even the little ones. What's funny is when Glock came out with their Glock 42, everyone got all jazzed and excited about it. And some of the gun writers, they're like, I'm glad everyone's excited about this little, this mini Glock or micro Glock or whatever they're calling it. But Carr has been making an excellent compact, 380 pocket pistol with a very, very good trigger for a long time, for years and years. And it's just kind of been overlooked. The Diamondback pistols, if you can get them, the little Diamondback 380s. Jared, tell me about the Diamondback 380 pocket pistols. What do you think about those guns?
I love the Diamondback 380 pistols. I can wear my shorts and my flip-flops and my tank top and carry it around here in South Mississippi on a 95-degree, 100% humidity day.
And well, what about the trigger on that little gun?
The trigger is very it's impressive for a little gun.
Well, and now the funny thing about when I mentioned Carr and Diamondback in the same sentence is the fact that Carr sued Diamondback for stealing their trigger design, and they lost. Now, why
Carr lost or Diamondback
no,
lost?
Diamondback lost. Yeah, Diamondback lost. Thank you for making me clear that up. But if you can find one of the original Diamondbacks with the Carr ripoff trigger, it's a really sweet shooting little gun, and they conceal very well. Now, when it comes to larger belt, guns that are going to be on your on a holster on your belt, your 9mm, 40s, 45s, and so forth, I really, in this day and age, if I was going to buy a gun, I would buy. Well, you guys know I would buy a striker-fired gun because it's one consistent trigger press, and generally, the more you shoot them, whether it's a Glock, a Smith & Wesson, an XD, a Ruger, what have you. The more you shoot a striker-fired gun, the better the trigger starts to feel because the parts start meshing together. But if you really, if you have an emotional attachment to the gun, you're like, no, but I love this gun. I just wish it had a better trigger. Okay, fine. Consult with a gunsmith and tell them that you want, and tell them, look, this isn't a race gun. This isn't a competition gun. When it comes down to it, I would not do anything to a trigger that is going to make it more fragile or make it so that if it becomes iffy, then you need to know that's a no-go. It's got to work every single time. So that is our thoughts on triggers.
I know we've got some local people listening. So do you have any gun manufacturers or, man, I just lost the word.
Gunsmiths?
Yeah, gunsmiths. There we go. Kind of like a locksmith. Do you have any local that you recommend?
Well, the only place that I know locally that I'm personally acquainted with is Cook's Gun Shop in Biloxi. They have a full-service gunsmith shop. I think they got 2 or 3 guys working in there. 1 guy full-time and 2 part-time, or 2 full-time and 1 part-time, something like that. But there are a lot of fantastic custom gunsmiths throughout the United States that you can ship your guns to. However, they're like attorneys. When we talked about attorneys, if you can, Yeager told me this a long time ago. He said, and he used this as a recommendation. If you can get to see an attorney immediately, you view that with an air of caution, because any really good attorney, it's going to take at least 2 weeks to get an appointment to see him. When it comes to really good gunsmiths, pistol smiths, you can expect your turnaround to be anywhere from 5, 6, 7 months, sometimes even out to a year on custom gun work. So then you also have to ask yourself, well, is it worth me sending this away to a smith and it's going to be gone for 9 months before I can use it again? Well, like I said, it's up to you. If I was spending $300 on a pocket gun, personally, there's no way I would box it up and send it to a gunsmith on the other side of the country and have them work on it. That's stuff you do with $600, $700, $1,000, $2,000 guns. But it is up to you. You consider what you will. I would never go below 4.5 pounds deliberately on a concealed carry gun, on a fighting gun. And I know it's kind of arbitrary. It's kind of an arbitrary number, but when you get really, let's face it, if you get really light, then you have unintentional discharges. And every time that gun goes bang, it should be on purpose. It should never be unintentional, accidental, or negligent. All right, Jared, let's go ahead and you want to move on to the next topic?
Yeah, let's move on to the next topic. We're going to follow up on what we talked about last week, the Byron Smith case. I guess it is a murder case, and he was convicted. Yeah,
just to give you guys a quick refresher in case you missed part 2 of last week's episode, home defense, you're doing it wrong. This is an incident out of Minnesota where a situation where it could have started out or ended up being a homeowner defends himself against a burglary or a break-in. And instead, what it ended up was this guy getting first and second degree, not only charges, but since we recorded the last episode, he's been convicted. The jury found him guilty of first and second degree murder, and it's a prison he's going to be going. And after the case was settled, that's when they started releasing evidence to the public. Up to that point, a lot of the evidence had been seen by reporters, but it wasn't, public. The information wasn't specifically public, including the audio. And we talked about this last week, how this guy had set up monitors around his house, and he'd set up audio recording instruments, and he recorded the break-in, the entire thing. And what we're going to do right now, since we have this audio, is we're going to let you listen to it, and then we're going to talk about it just real briefly.
You're dead. Sorry about that. Oh, yeah. You're dying.
All right. This incident, well, here are my thoughts about this Minnesota incident. All right, number one, this would have never happened if these two individuals, these two teens, would not have decided that it was a good thing for them on Thanksgiving Day, instead of being at home. Is anybody else out there in the audience thought about this? This is Thanksgiving Day, right? 2012. So instead of being at home with their families on the holiday, these two are out breaking into people's houses. Number one, that is an indicator of bad parenting and bad upbringing right there. I'm sorry if it hurts your feelings. You're like, well, they don't deserve to be ditched. Stop. When you were 17 or 18, did you think on Christmas or Thanksgiving or whatever, Easter morning, I know the whole family's getting together and they're celebrating the holiday, but me and my cousin are going to get in a car and we're going to drive around town and we're going to see what houses look empty so we can break into them. Really? All right, I don't feel bad for what happened to these kids. Oh, you're a monster. You're a ghoul. You know what? Shut up. We've got a problem in this nation when we have 17 and 18-year-old kids that think it's okay to break into houses, to rob them, to steal from them. And unfortunately, this is kind of a twisted case because after the case comes out, see, the people in Minnesota knew this. They knew about the previous break-in. They knew about the evidence that they found in the car of stolen drugs and stolen property that had been taken from a house the previous day. But what the jury was not allowed to consider, the judge in this case, he issued forth an opinion or a motion that he would not allow the evidence of the previous crime to be introduced or discussed during the trial. And you can kind of go one way or the other with that. So you say, well, just because they were thieves before doesn't mean they're thieves now, or what have you. But let's face it, in a situation like this, the prosecutors are painting these teens as just little wayward children that made a mistake and they didn't deserve to die for their mistake. Okay, if they'd have been caught egging houses or toilet papering or, stealing stop signs from the intersections, yeah, that's a mistake that teenagers make, and it's stupid and it's juvenile, and they don't deserve to be killed for it.
Well, you do know that if the stand your ground law didn't exist, they wouldn't have been shot, right?
Yeah, that's another thing that we've been seeing around the internet, and it's these internet pundits, these, professional journalism majors, and every time someone uses a firearm to defend themselves, they jump on this stand your ground thing. That has absolutely no basis in a home invasion. I don't even know how they think, this just goes to prove that we need to re-examine the stand your ground law. Well, how do we go about that? So from now on, if you're at home and it's 12:30 at night and you hear the back window break, you have to flee from your home, away from the home invaders? Really? Is that what we want? That's a country we want to live in? Now, where Byron Smith went wrong, he went wrong in several ways. And they're like, well, he laid in wait for them. Well, he was in his basement, and they say he knew they were going to come in there. Now, this is another one of those things like, well, they're like, he parked his truck so that no one could see it, and he went downstairs and he specifically sat in his basement because he knew they were going to break in. And you're like, well, how did he know they were going to break in? Well, they said that the deceased male in this situation had been a suspect in 2 previous break-ins. Oh, well, what do we know about that? So the male in this situation was suspected in 2 previous break-ins of Mr. Smith's house. So it's Mr. Smith's fault that this guy broke in the 3rd time, that he laid in wait for him. Well, folks, if you have a home or a business or you live in an area where you're burglarized multiple times and then you finally get sick of it and you arm yourself and you stay in your house and you stop the burglars, does that make it your fault? What do you think, Jared? That makes it his fault? He forced the teens. See, that's the one thing about this incident or this trial that I have a problem with, or a couple of things, but is that they tried to portray it like he entrapped them. So his form of entrapment was hiding his truck so that it looked like the house was unoccupied. That's how he entrapped these poor teens into breaking into his house. Really? So if your home looks empty and you get broken into and you use a gun to stop the home invaders, then you're guilty of premeditated murder now because your home looked empty and no one thought you were there. All right, that's crap. But where Smith went really wrong is, number one, he didn't call the police when the crime was going on. I'm sorry, he was wrong. There's no way that he could say he was not wrong. It wasn't that he just didn't call the police immediately. He didn't call them, and according to the story that we have here, he asked his neighbors to call the police the next day, which is just crazy, like psycho killer stuff. It's like, I just killed 2 people. They're in my basement on a tarp. And, it was yesterday. Could you give the police a call and ask them to come over? What? Okay, yeah. The recording the whole thing so that everyone could hear, yeah, that was kind of crazy. I would think I'd rather have video than audio. But and then what we know from the tape and the way it was described and played out was that he used his firearm to shoot them. They went down, and then after they were down and no longer legitimately posed a threat of deadly force to him, he went over and shot him again for just that coup de grace, finishing shot stuff.
And this is my take on the people are saying that he's getting, I don't really know how to explain it. He's getting chastised for, or people are making excuses for him killing the kids or the vermin that broke into his house. He's getting chastised for killing them. And he made the conscious decision to kill them before they even broke into the house. So because I've been through the adrenaline dump, I know what it feels like. And you do stupid stuff. You say things you don't remember. You do things you don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
So from my perspective on this situation is that he was sitting in his chair and he told himself that no matter what happened, he was going to kill them.
Yeah, they were going to die.
Yeah, they were going to die, not stop. But die.
Exactly. Yeah, that's that right there. That's when we knew that he was. Once we found that out, that's when we knew he was going to prison. Was when it wasn't just a matter of I'm going to use the firearm to make these people stop trying to hurt me, break into my house, whatever. I'm going to use this firearm to make sure that they die. And you're like, well, guns kill people, Paul. Duh. Yes, I understand that if you shoot someone, they may expire. But that's not your purpose or your goal in a self-defense shooting is to make them expire. It's to make them stop or to inhibit their ability to harm you.
We had a couple people that listened to last week's show that thought we were standing up for the vermin that broke into the house and defending them and saying that he was crazy and guilty and...
Well, yeah, and I don't know how you. I mean, first of all,
I listened to the show over again. I didn't really know how. I didn't understand.
Well, that's when people they jump to conclusions based upon either the title or how many times the YouTube videos. Well, I saw the title and I knew I wasn't even going to watch it because of the title.
Or
what kind of shirt he was wearing.
Yeah.
I saw what kind of shirt he was wearing, and I knew right then and there I didn't want to hear anything what this guy had to say.
What I say to that is good because you're probably not going to understand what he has to say anyway.
Yeah, folks, and we get that all the time. Not the radio show, but with articles too. We get a lot of people will comment on an article, and they'll post their comment, and they'll post like a whole paragraph worth of comment that. All it does is addresses the title. I'm like, if you'd invested 3 minutes, if you'd invested the same amount of time reading the article that you did writing your, 200-word comment, maybe you would understand. But there's a lot of blame to go around here in this Minnesota incident. And what's sad or what's kind of unnerving from my perspective is how it's going to be portrayed in the media, and the big media is homeowner uses gun, shoots teens, homeowner is wrong, goes to prison. That's what the vast majority of America that never is going to look beyond the headlines, that's what they're going to get from this. And so what you're going to have, unfortunately, is you will have Mr. and Mrs. America out there. They'll see the headlines, homeowner convicted of first-degree murder after shooting teens, who broke into his house. And that's all they're going to get. They're not going to get into all the details and why he got convicted and so forth. And what they will do is they will hesitate to defend themselves when they really need to. They'll either won't buy a gun or they'll buy a gun, they won't load it. They'll, fire warning shots, they'll point the gun but not shoot it. They'll do things that will endanger themselves, that will put themselves in jeopardy because they're afraid that, well, if I know, I'm in my home and somebody broke in, but if I use my gun, then I'm going to go to prison just like that other guy. Well, yeah, but why did that other guy go to prison? And if you decide not to use the gun, it might not be prison that you go to. It may be the morgue. So that may be your decision. That's really the biggest problem that I have with this whole story is that it's going to be portrayed by the mainstream media as, see, all you want to be vigilante, people out there, you need to learn from this, and you can't just be shooting people because they break into your house. Right? Well, actually, kind of you can. That's kind of the whole point, unless you live in New York. Because if you live in New York, we know that if you use a gun to drive away a home invader, that they will arrest you instead of the criminal. But that's New York. All right, Jared, well, let's go ahead and we put that one to bed. We just thought you guys would appreciate an update since so much transpired between last week and this week on the Minnesota report there. Now, we've got one for you, and this actually gets into the meat of the show, and it just happens to be a vagination report. So take it away, Jared.
You guys thought I was going to start singing the Vaginations theme song there because Dad put me on the spot, but sorry to disappoint. But thank you to Tiny Tim for
Thanks,
that.
Tiny Tim. Rest in peace. Yeah, this is not only is it a vagination report, but this is the main theme of our show. And if you're planning on writing me a letter or a comment saying this isn't gun related, so stop talking about it, what I have to say to you is, go get your own freaking show, and you can talk about whatever you want. But I digress.
Or we could say, man up and
shut your mouth and listen for a minute.
And that's so gay. Anyway, let's get it. That's part of this story.
Okay. This story, actually, we've been holding on to this for a little while because, last week the show notes were just packed full, and we didn't have time to talk about it in either number 1 or number 2. So this story goes back about a week or two, but we thought that given the current events in the United States of America, it was really worth talking about. And the sweet boot on a rubber raft. It kind of disappoints me because, I guess it shouldn't, because this comes out of Duke University, and you think, well, Duke, isn't that in North Carolina? I mean, that's in the South, right? If this came out of a university in Massachusetts, or New York, or Connecticut, or University of UC Berkeley, or San Francisco, I would expect this from them. I would expect this kind of vagination behavior from UC Berkeley. I really don't expect it from Duke University. I mean, come on, it's North Carolina, for Pete's sake. But what do we have? We have people in all halls of academia. We have these social elitists, social do-gooders who've decided that, and college students. I love it when 20 and 21-year-old college students have somehow discovered that they are the most enlightened, intelligent people on planet Earth. And all you old people that, you just have mortgages and pay taxes and you have families and, and careers, you don't know. I went to high school, and this one kid who's in this story, he's a sophomore. Ooh, so you're like the ripe age of what, 19, 20 years old? So this little 20-year-old pimple-faced turd is going to come out with a campaign and tell the world how they should speak. And the title of this story from the H Douchebag Post is Duke, You Don't Say campaign reminds you which words shouldn't be used as slang. Okay, whatever. And Jared, do you want to go ahead and cue the audio, and then we'll talk about it in detail. This audio that Jared's about to cue up here, we got all kinds of audio for you guys this week, and you're welcome. But this one comes to apparently the hdouchebagpost.com. They also have a live show that they do.
You shouldn't say douchebag.
Oh, am I not?
That's not on their list.
It's not on the list?
It should be.
Oh, it should be. We'll have to start a new list. Okay. Because that is juvenile and sophomoric, and I should not say that. So, like I said, and if this is America, this is the United States of America, and if you are offended by the use of the term douchebag or vagination, there are many other shows you could go listen to, and that really you should go listen to, because apparently your feelings are so fragile. I don't know how you exist. I don't know how you live. If your feelings are so fragile that the word vagination offends you, you need to go away from me because something bad's going to happen to you.
And one of my favorite things is the guys that email us trying to stand up for the women. Let me tell you something. The women will stand up for themselves if they feel like they need to. You don't have to do it for them. Let it do them themselves. And we get a lot of compliments from.
Have we ever gotten a woman that wrote us in and was really angry or incensed or I'm not going to listen to you anymore because you said vagination or you said douchebag? No, it's always these effeminate dudes or these dudes that think that, oh, I'm going to write you a letter and tell you you shouldn't talk like that. You know what? If you don't have a vagina, don't write me and tell me not to use the vagination. And when 100 women write and tell me not to do it, I'll stop. But then again, I won't because I'm a man and I do what I want. So, and I wish that you were a man and did what you wanted, or a woman and did what you wanted. But I tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and let Jared cue up this anchor, reporter, whatever you want to call him. He's a comfortable dude on a couch. We'll let the comfortable dude on a couch talk to us about this new report.
How often do you hear someone say man up or no homo or using phrases and words like this, which can honestly dehumanize and marginalize gender and sexual minorities? Well, now a Duke University campaign called You Don't Say is reminding us of the power of language and why there are some things you just don't say.
All right, so this comfortable dude on a couch here has decided he's telling us about this story, this wonderful, this just enlightened story from Duke University, and how these wonderful young people with just decades of life experience have decided that they're going to tell us in America what we can and can't say, or should. We're not saying you can't, you just shouldn't. You know what you should do? You should shut your mouth, get to your books, study, get a degree, get a job, a mortgage, pay your taxes, have some kids. Then you can come back to me and tell me what I should and shouldn't say. But I digress. So, you say, Paul, well, what does this have to do with guns? What does this have to do with being a student of the gun? Well, I'm going to tell you what it does. When you allow these socialist organizations, these groups of people to issue you, they're going to issue now, it's not bad enough that there is a one word that you have been forbidden to say, or two words that you've been forbidden to say. And these aren't even, is it the big 6 or the big 9? Or maybe the big 7? George Carlin did a bit years ago. For all you old dudes out there and old chicks, you remember George Carlin. And George Carlin had a comedy bit. And it was I can't think of it. Jared, do me a favor. Google George Carlin's, or duck it, whatever you want to do, 9 things you can't say on the radio. And anyway, Carlin had the list. He had the FCC list of, it was either 7 or 9 things that you were forbidden to say by FCC rules. Well, we used to have those. We had, and Jared's going to come up with it in a second here.
I think it's 7.
Is it 7? You think, or what do you got there?
It says George Carlin's 7 dirty words.
Oh, okay. George Carlin's very famous bit on the 7 dirty words, 7 words that you were forbidden by the FCC to say on either radio or television. Okay. And of course, because George Carlin was who he was, he made sure that he said every single one of those words in his act, just as kind of a screw you to them. But so we had 7 words. Well, now we've evolved from the 7 words to 12, 15, 20. Eventually, are we going to, I guess the next step is to have these enlightened college sophomores issue us pamphlets, entire pamphlets of words and phrases that we shouldn't say.
Well, these 7 words are actually legitimate to for at least for a kid's show.
Yeah, they're swear words.
Yeah, right. They're actual swear words. They're not slang terms that don't mean anything.
No, yeah. Carlin was not a PG-13 rated comedian. He was very R-rated comedian, and he was right. But how far are we going to go in society now? Folks, we're losing it. And you say, Paul, dude, get back to the guns. All right, I'm going to tell you. This is why we're talking about guns. remember we've talked to you previously about Dr. John Lott and his book, More Guns, Less Crime. And then there have been several actually follow-up studies since his original study back in, I think it was 98, where they've said that based on the comparing the number of concealed carry holders in an area and the violent crime, statistically across the entire United States of America, if you had a high number of concealed carry weapons permit holders, you had significant reductions in violent crime. Rape, robbery, murder, all that, kidnapping, it all went down. And then if you didn't, there pretty much was no change. And we also have seen in, the cities that have the highest or most strict gun control laws, the highest number of gun control laws, the most strict regulations, they always have the highest violent crime rate. These are facts, and they're undeniable facts. Well, what do you know about the other side? What do you know about the statists? What do you know about the big government side? What do you know about the collective progressive side? When they run up against factual arguments, they have to figure out a way to silence you some other way. This is, for those of you that are old enough to remember the O.J. trick, the O.J. Simpson trial. The facts of the case were weighing against O.J. Simpson. So what did his attorneys do in good progressive liberal fashion? What they did was they attacked the detectives, Mark Furman. And they're like, well, we can't refute the evidence because the evidence is pretty heavily weighed against us. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to attack their person. We're going to attack their character. We're going to attack what they say and how they say it and when they've said it, and basically deflect totally away from the argument. And when it comes to guns, when it comes to firearms ownership, when it comes to carrying concealed, when it comes to being a pro-Second Amendment person, the other side cannot defeat you with facts. They can't. The facts don't support their cause. So what do they have to do? When they get into a fight that they can't win by facts, they have to silence you. And this is one of the ways they do that. This is one of the ways they silence you. They either tell you that you cannot say certain things, certain phrases, certain words, or if you point out the facts of the case and you are going to defeat them, what they will do is they will attack you personally. They'll say, well, you know what? Yeah, whatever. He might be right on that point, but we have him on record saying no homo or man up or whatever. What they will do is they will try and defeat your argument by attacking your credibility. It's one of the oldest games in their playbook.
I think that every one of you that can hear my voice right now should send Duke the song No Homo by, I believe it was by The Lonely Island.
There really is a song called No Homo.
Oh, yeah. You haven't heard it? Dude.
Ask me if I've heard that.
Have you heard that?
No.
Dude, you've got to hear it.
You know what's happening right now across the United States of America? Everyone is on there. They're just looking it up.
Yeah, do that. And then you've already there. You're looking it up, so just send it to Duke.
Yeah. And this plays right in. This story plays right in exactly with what happened this week during with the L.A. Clippers and their owner Don Sterling. And I'm sure that the vast majority of you have heard about this. And quite frankly, you're probably sick of it if you're like me. And if you haven't heard of it, if you've been one of the fortunate few that has not heard about this, apparently Don Sterling doesn't like people of color. Go ahead and give me the time hack again, Jared. I didn't catch it there.
43.
All right. He doesn't like people of color, or he doesn't move with people of color or whatever. It doesn't matter. So what they've decided to do, well, first of all, they decided to audio tape him. His estranged girlfriend taped him with her phone or something, and then they made it public. And so now they've decided to crucify this guy. And what you need to ask yourself as intelligent people is, well, all right, I might not agree with this guy. I might think that he's an idiot. I might think that he's a Neanderthal, that he's a caveman, and that he's unenlightened. Okay, great, rock on. I don't care about him either. And it turns out, I believe that he was a big Obama donor. I think he was a big Democrat Party donor. But they've decided to crucify this guy because of what he said, not because of what he did, not because of any actions that he took, but because of the words that he spoke. And ladies and gentlemen, if you do not think that we are on a slippery slope where speaking words are more dangerous, if you live in a country where the spoken word is more dangerous than the action, you live in a fascist country, or you live in a budding fascist country. When you have to be careful what you say, you know what? We all aren't going to get along. We are all not going to be best friends. We're all not going to have the same thoughts and opinions on things. That's what being in a free country is all about. That's what individual liberty is all about. Individual liberty is the freedom to be a moron. It's the freedom to do stupid things and to say stupid things and to not be punished for things that you say. Now you say, well, he's not being punished by the government. No, he's not being punished by the government. The government doesn't need to punish him. The NBA I don't know how this works. They fined him $2.5 million. Does the NBA have a police department now or a court system where they can go in and take your money from you? I don't know. But it's a crazy situation. And the reason you, as a pro-Second Amendment, pro-gun person, need to pay attention to it, because like we said, if they cannot defeat you with facts, they're going to defeat you with words. Think about that. All right, Jared's giving me the let's wrap it up and let's go to the next segment. And so what we're going to do is, before I let you guys go, I want to go get back on a topic that I haven't talked about for several months, but it's the 4-H shooting sports program. We are right now fast into the 4-H shooting education camp program. The actual camp that we're going to attend, there's 2 camps in Ohio. We're going to attend one of them here at the beginning of July. 4-H shooting sports programs across the United States are in, I don't know if they're in every state, but they're in the majority of the states that run through the 4-H, national 4-H. And they are volunteer programs. They make no money. They don't go out and turn a profit. They rely totally upon donations and also upon money from the college programs. The reason I'm mentioning this to you, because if you think that our young people, rather than becoming home invaders and burglars, that they need to actually get out and do something productive, that they need to learn to use firearms in a safe and effective manner, you should get involved with the 4-H shooting sports program. And even if you don't have kids, let's say you're like, well, I don't have any kids or grandkids, but I think this is a fantastic program and I fully support them. What can I do? Well, I'll tell you what you can do. Jared has put a link on the Student of the Gun Radio homepage. Just go to Student of the Gun Radio, all one word together there, .com. And up on the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a symbol, and it's for the Midway USA Foundation, and then the 4-H Shooting Sports logo is below it. Just click onto that, and it'll take you to the foundation's page. And what you can do is this is a not-for-profit, a completely not-for-profit organization. But if you make a donation to the 4-H shooting sports program, Larry and Brenda Potterfield of Midway USA, they will match your donation times 2, right, Jared? Yeah, it's times 2.
That's 2 to 1, yeah.
Yeah, it's 2 to 1. So think about it like this. You say, well, I don't have a lot of money. I would say, well, you have $20? Well, yeah, I have $20. I mean, who doesn't have $20? You donate $20, and they'll match it with $40. So that's like a $60 donation.
You can math.
I can math, $50 becomes $150, what have you. And as you can imagine, when you run a shooting sports program, it's not cheap. And they constantly have to, repurchase ammunition, clay targets, equipment upkeep of the camp and so forth. They really, really could use your support. If you think that the 4-H shooting sports is something that should be supported, get on there, go click on that link. Like I said, it's on the Student of the Gun Radio homepage. Just click the link. It'll take you directly to the Midway USA Foundation, and you can make a donation there. I know that the adult volunteers and the kids, they can use your support. So I'd appreciate it if sometime this week you just at very least take a look at it, and if you can find it in your hearts to give them $10, $20, $50, that'd be fantastic. Now, we're going to go ahead and put the wraps on part 1 of this week's episode. We want to thank you guys for being out there. We appreciate it as always. Don't forget about Student of the Gun TV, and that is on Dish Network Channel 266 every Monday night at 9. That's 9 Eastern. Check that out. If you can't go there, go to studentofthegun.com and watch the shows, watch the archives, read the articles, do all that good stuff. Share them with your friends. Let everybody know. And if you got a smartphone or an iPad or an iPhone, you can download the Student of the Gun app absolutely free because of our good friends at Century. Now remember, you are a beginner once, but you should be a student for life.